I want to welcome you all back here to Aspen. It's particularly great for me to be back here again this year without the benefit of crutches or painkillers. Although, of course, this year there's a whole range of medicinal alternatives that are available close by. I had to get in the obligatory marijuana joke, so now we don't need any more. It's great to see so many of you back here again, and it's great to welcome those of you who are here for the first time. The theme of this year's forum is Tech in Transition, Policy Challenges, and while many of the topics are familiar, there's a new twist to many of the policy challenges that we face. Important aspects of the global internet governance system are in transition. The FCC in the short run and the Congress over a longer time horizon face fundamental questions about the extent to which the communications infrastructure should be regulated. The advent of big data has raised new questions about the direction of data privacy policy. Government and the private sector grapple with ever more sophisticated threats to the security of networks and sensitive data. And there are important debates as well about the performance of our intellectual property frameworks, both with respect to patents and copyright and how to improve them. And finally, trade in digital goods and services is increasing, but may fall short of its potential due to government impediments, which are in part a reaction to intrusive government surveillance. I think we've tried to assemble really a stellar and diverse cast of experts from government, academia, and industry to address these issues as well as others in a way that I hope you all will find illuminating and interesting. We have a tradition at this opening reception of trying to have a prominent Coloradan give welcoming remarks, and this year we're extremely honored to have Congressman Scott Tipton join us. To introduce him, I'd like to introduce TPI's own native Coloradan, our board member, Ray Gifford.
Thanks, Tom, and welcome to Aspen and welcome to Colorado. TPI strategically puts its board members in crucial parts of the country, DC, Silicon Valley, and I get to hold down the Colorado side of the fort. As many of you know, and many of you, we reconvene here year after year in August. We do have a great tradition of having a Coloradan join us and welcome us. In the past, we've had governors, we've had senators, we even had a Supreme Court justice, who I guess wouldn't qualify as a Coloradan, and even an esteemed law school dean open up this conference. But we have never to date had the congressman who represents this district here to speak with us. And it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce that congressman. Now, I think the reason that we've never had the congressman join us here is there is a quota in Aspen. At any one time, there can only be 3 Republicans. And if David Gross and I are both here, then there's only room for one more. But Aspen has waived that requirement, and I think there may be a few Aspenites, congressmen, who'd even admit voting for you. But there are more across the whole district who voted him in since 2010. Congressman Scott Tipton represents the western slope of Colorado and all the way down to Pueblo, Colorado. He is, in many ways, what many congressmen aspire to be or to tell their constituents they are, which is a real small businessman. Congressman Tipton is from Cortez, Colorado, has owned and run a small business down there. If you've never been to that corner of the state, it's one of the few parts of the state that can give Aspen a run for its money in terms of beauty. Congressman Tipton has represented this district since 2010. We are proud to have him as a congressman. He is sadly not my congressman, but if the next redistricting can take in Golden congressman, you're more than welcome to come represent me as well. And with that, I would like to introduce Colorado Congressman Scott Tipton from Cortez, Colorado.
Well, thank you, Ray, and I'd like to welcome all of you to the 3rd Congressional District of Colorado, and I have to tell you that I am morally obligated to be able to encourage you to spend money, help grow our economy. We certainly appreciate you taking the time to be here. You know, when Ray was introducing me here and he was talking about governors, senators, deans of law schools, and now you get a congressman, just shows standards are dropping everywhere, I guess, in terms of introductions. But very interesting in terms of the policy questions and the changes that this summit is going to be addressing over the next few days. And probably the very best news that I can bring you, since I'm here and many of you are out of Washington, since you are here, that means Congress is out of session, so America is safer and your businesses probably are too. So very interesting when we look at the state of Colorado. Many people are not aware that in terms of the space industry, here in Colorado, we have the 3rd largest space economy in terms of the technology. Had the great opportunity to be able to go and tour the facilities at Ball, Lockheed Martin. But what's further interesting is, as I've traveled throughout the 3rd Congressional District that extends from really one of the great treasures for my district in the state of Colorado, the community of Aspen, over to Grand Junction, down to Durango, over to Pueblo, Colorado. We see small tech businesses which are playing a critical role not only in the space technology arena, but also in terms of consumer goods, in terms of manufacturing, in terms of being able to provide technology for the medical community, communications as well. It's a collage of small businesses going throughout the 3rd Congressional District of Colorado, and indeed the state. The role, the businesses that you are dealing in right now are cutting edge and touch virtually every segment of American life today. The small businesses that I'm talking about are facing many of the same challenges that you are in your industry. It's about policy coming out of Washington, D.C. I believe, and I'm fully dedicated as a small businessman that Ray had mentioned, I had a very simple credo in my business. If it's broken, fix it. If it's not working, stop doing it. Sounds like a good policy for Washington, D.C. to be able to employ. But here's the challenge that we truly face. We're seeing coming out of Washington, D.C., out of the Congress, and through executive action, through the bureaucracies, the agencies, we're seeing ever-growing rules and regulations which are impacting our ability to be able to do our job. In fact, right now we have 4,000 new regulations that are currently in the pipeline. We've seen 174,000 pages of new regulations employed, touching all businesses across the country. This has a genuine economic impact on every business in the country, and particularly in the technological center as well. We are now incurring costs of $1.8 trillion a year in this country, $1.8 trillion a year in regulatory costs. On the Small Business Committee that I sit on, we'd further define that through the SBA, and we were actually paying on a per employee basis for small businesses $10,558 per employee in regulatory costs. Now, I want to be very clear. Some people will always take this to the extreme that you want to be able to get rid of all regulations and just have it be complete laissez-faire. It's not the case. You know, back in the beginning of the 1900s in this nation, when we started building automobiles, there were only 2 cars in New York City, only 2 vehicles in New York City. They ran into each other. So a stoplight's not a bad idea. We can have rules, we can have regulations, but we need to be able to have common sense in the process as well. A piece of legislation that I'd invite you to take a look at that we passed through the 212th and now again in the 213th Congress that is sitting on the doorstep of the United States Senate is a piece of legislation called the RAINS Act. You know, here in Colorado we have something that's a little bit similar, and we do some very good things in this state. We have something called sunset legislation, meaning that at points certain we will look back at a rule, at a regulation, at a department, at an agency to see if they reached legislative intent. Did they exceed legislative intent? In Congress, as you well know, if you want to get rid of a rule or a regulation once it goes final, it takes the proverbial act of Congress, a bill through the House, a bill through the Senate, and a presidential signature to be able to remove something that no member of Congress ever voted on. Does that make common sense? I would suggest not. What the REINS Act will do is insert Congress back into that rulemaking authority. If we see a major rule or a rule that has a $50 million impact nationwide, and that means virtually any rule that we will see coming out, Congress can actually play a role in terms of determining the applicability of those rules. That's going to play a role certainly in the Technology Center as we are looking forward. The leaps and bounds that we are seeing in the new innovations. As I look around the room, a few of you can probably join me in looking back in life and what we are leading right now, and the instruments that we carry on our hips, the tablets that we pack around to be able to do business on, were the thing of science fiction but a short time ago. We're continuing to see these developments and innovations take place. There are opportunities to be able to create jobs, opportunities to be able to benefit this country, and indeed to be able to benefit the world, and you are on the cutting edge of those. We need, in my estimation, as a small businessman who serves in Congress, to be able to come back and look at the experts in terms of some of the guidance when we're looking at rules and regulations and legislation that's going to be moving forward, to be able to make sure that we are making the best decisions, to be able to grow this economy and to be able to get our people literally back to work. You know, here in the state of Colorado, in our state legislature this last year, they combined 5 bills, one of the most comprehensive telecommunication packages that we have seen in the country. Critical for Congress to take that same lead, to be able to deal with some of those same issues. As I go through my district, we have to be able to get broadband and have that distributed out to all of our communities. And I want to be able to give you a little story that may not seem to have a big nexus, but I'll try to be able to connect that. Grew up here in the 3rd District. My dad was born in a small town outside of Durango called Bayfield, Colorado, 7 miles up the Pine River Valley. I still have the kerosene lamp that he studied by. But electricity was available in the United States at the time, just wasn't available in Bayfield, Colorado. So soon, the REAs, Rural Electric Associations, came through to be able to deliver that electricity, to be able to light up the rural parts of our country, to be able to get those economies working in those different areas. When they came into that community and lit that up, I still remember my dad describing very vividly when they strung in and hung up a 25-watt bulb in the center of the room and used a switch to be able to turn it on, how bright that was. The opportunity through expanding broadband access throughout the United States into these rural communities in terms of the Connecting America Act, the second phase of this. It's a good step forward to make sure that we're trying to make sure that the economies of scale, economies of opportunity are not limited to our urban areas, but stretch out into our rural areas as well and give people the freedom to be able to live in these rural communities and to be able to create jobs and put people to work where it is so abundantly needed right now. You know, the challenges we face in Washington, I think, are legion right now in terms of looking at $17.6 trillion debt, in terms of making sure that we try to overcome something that greatly disturbs me, and I hope it disturbs you as well. There's something called the World Economic Freedom Index. Do you realize in the World Economic Freedom Index that the United States is no longer in the top 10? I hope that concerns you. It concerns me. We need to kick open the door, once again, to entrepreneurialism and innovation in this country. Government does not create jobs. It can be a facilitator. It has a role to be able to play. But the real ideas, the real opportunities, the real jobs, the real future of this country lies with unleashing that American potential. Nobody in the world can or will do it better than we will do it right here, given the freedom to be able to achieve to that highest and best level. You know, I'll look forward to working with you and have a member of my staff here, Kristen Reese. We have 4 offices scattered throughout the 3rd Congressional District of Colorado, and our office in D.C. as well. Would invite you to come into our offices to be able to talk about these issues, to be able to give us your input, your thoughts in terms of the best ways to be able to move forward. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to welcome you to the 3rd District of Colorado, the most beautiful district, and we like to refer to it as the center of the universe, and we hope you'll share that with us, but to the state of Colorado as well. I hope you enjoy your conference, and thank you for this brief moment to be a part of it with you.
I just have one logistical announcement. Obviously, please, continue eating and drinking. But Tim Bresnahan, unfortunately, had an emergency back in California, so he's not going to be able to join us for the keynote at 8:30 on Monday. So we're going to start with the 9 o'clock panel. Breakfast will be available at 7:30, as indicated on the program, but the actual program won't start until 9 o'clock.